trust your teams to do more, enable them to really do things. And don't just say it, mean it. Get the right tools to them to enable them to do more.
Welcome to the Digital Advantage by Bynder, a show by marketers for marketers who want to create engaging content experiences to differentiate their brand from the competition. In each episode, a member of the Bynder team will host a conversation with a leading marketing expert to discuss trends, challenges, solutions, and how to remain competitive in an uncertain economic landscape. Our guests will share stories that showcase innovative ways of using content to inspire marketing leaders to take action, optimize their content strategies, and ultimately achieve the success they seek. Let's jump right in.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Digital Advantage by Bynder. My name is Donald O'Maron. I'm Director of Lifecycle Marketing here at Bynder. And in this show, we're just trying to explore what it takes to deliver a consistent content experience at speed and that performs well, and trying to uncover some of the secrets, or maybe things that aren't so secret but they're in front of our face all the time. And to do that, we'd like to speak to experts. And I think today we've got one such expert with us. Our guest today is Jasmin Guthmann, Head of Corporate Communication at Content Stack. Jasmin, welcome.
Hi, Joel. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
I may have undersold you a little bit there. You are also the Vice President of the MAC Alliance as well. Is that true?
That is true. And I was just reelected onto the board. So apparently we do make a difference. And I'm super excited to keep doing that. I'm up for another 2 super exciting years of advocating for best of breed composable architectures. No, that's a mouthful.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Well, congratulations on
Thank
that. And I'm sure it's super exciting. We'll watch closely. I guess what we're hoping people get from today is that they will, through the implementation of best in breed MarTech, improve their time to market, improve their marketing efforts in particular. So before we set out exploring that, maybe you could just tell us a little bit more about that work you're doing, the MAC Alliance, Content Stack, and your own background as well.
For sure. And I mean, we live in such interesting times because speed is of the essence and everything keeps getting faster and faster. Total number of assets keeps increasing, assets under management, content assets, in any direction that you can think about it. That is a topic, and it's a challenging topic. So super exciting times to be in marketing and MarTech, especially because I think if you've been around for a while, you remember the good old days where you actually had a ruler and you had printouts and you measured things by hand before they went into print. And guess what? Those days are gone. And how do you, if you're a business and you're thinking about it under business terms, how do you cope? How do you set yourself up for success in an environment that is ever changing? The only constant is change and is ever growing. So your technology really needs to enable you as a business to be successful, to be able to scale, and to be able to manage all of those assets in a meaningful way. Many tech stacks or platforms are coded in a way that doesn't allow you to do that. If your IT team spends the majority of their time on Jira tickets that are requests like, I need this landing page replicated, or I need a page that is a little different to what we usually have, or any other minor change, really, you're doing it wrong. And it's very frustrating, both for the IT side of the house, if you want to think about it in those terms, and the marketing side of the house. The IT side doesn't, nobody ever signed up to just work through a batch of Jira tickets and a backlog. Equally, no marketer ever signed up to submit Jira tickets.
I know.
So how do we actually enable those people to do the best work possible, to be as creative as they can be, which will have a very positive impact on the business? We need to enable them to do a lot of things themselves, to do them quickly and to do them safely. And the Mock Alliance and Content Stack both play a role in that. Content Stack as a headless CMS that is sort of the nucleus around which we started, what we're super capable in. What we do is we're your base, and then you can attach pieces, which is exactly the spirit of composable architectures, composable technology. You are not stuck with any one thing. You start in one place, usually content or commerce, and then you build your stack out depending on what is most important to you, what is most important to your business, or what's the most painful at the moment on whichever technology you're on. Maybe it's search, maybe it's payment, maybe it's content, maybe it's whatever it is. You can pick that one thing and make it better, and then start slowly expanding your capabilities around that, which is where the Mock Alliance comes in. The Mock Alliance is a non-for-profit, neutral institution that has been founded 3 years ago to help companies understand what this weird composable thing is and what it will actually do for them. Because truth be told, most C-suites do not care about your tech stack. And whether it's composable or monolith or pink or yellow or checkered, they don't care. What they do care about is that going to increase my revenue? Is it going to shorten my sales cycle? Is it going to allow me to push out more content to all channels without having to manually touch it before I do? So there's a lot of benefits to be gained, and where the Mock Alliance is actively pushing the market to be more outspoken and more precise in formulating what those benefits are, and in explaining how to actually go from a legacy tech to a modern composable tech stack.
What I keep hearing when you're talking through that is how, possibly the major driver is businesses having to put the customers at the center of this now, right? So it's like there's demands that are being, put onto companies now that they must meet that are coming from customers. And yeah, there's a commercial element to it, but that's where it's coming from. So the ways of changing are the ways we're doing business are changing as well, right? Like, and that needs to be thought right through back to tech stack and everything. So I think, well, let's dive into that a little bit as we go through this. But I think we've jumped off there a few times mentioning content, and we at Bynder released our state of content report this year. And despite the fact that there was, at the time of the report, uncertainty around the economy and even a down economy, we saw that 69% of marketing leaders were planning to maintain or increase, or in some cases significantly increase, their investments in content and content programs. And I just wanted to throw that over to you, and maybe you give us your particular perspective on why you think that number was so high.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see that. You did an amazing job on the report, very thorough. If you haven't read it yet and you're listening, go check it out, because there's a lot of really great insights in there. Interestingly enough, the number is the same across many, if not all, verticals, and also across retailers, which is usually sort of our gauge for, because they're first and fast. Those are usually the people that are a little bit ahead of the curve. And what we see is 2/3, roughly 67%, expect the number of digital assets to grow over the next 12 months. And of course, why? Because personalization that we keep talking about, it's not a new topic, but it's one that hasn't really been solved, if you want to think about it as a problem statement, right? But if you want to create unique user experiences, to tie back into the point that you just very validly made, that is only possible with more content assets. If you want a personalized approach to create a unique user experience, that is only possible with more assets. Sadly, though, only 1/3 of companies is actually confident that they will be able to manage all of those digital assets. And that is frightening, quite frankly, right? Because it means that they're not well prepared, neither from a tech nor from a resource perspective, because tech is only one portion of it. There's really three components: tech, people, and process. And if your framework doesn't even allow you to think about what's possible, how are you ever going to create something where the user or the customer says, oh, this is amazing, that's a brand that I really want to buy things from? Very hard, if not impossible. So it's super important that you think ahead. And if you want to be future fit as a company, you need to be flexible, because I think that's the second big thing. I don't think anybody right now knows what they will need in terms of technology 2 years from now, let alone
Absolutely
5.
not. Like, yeah, let alone five indeed. I mean, fundamentally, I think is underlying that sort of those trends that you've eloquently sort of drawn out there, right? Like the gap between what's expected to happen and the capacity to deliver on that is how the changes on the customer's end, how people discover your brand, how they engage with your brand, how they buy from your brand. Those channels have just increased exponentially. And the capacity to effectively deliver deliver content experiences, user experiences, just has not kept up. And particularly with the part that hasn't kept up is, even if those technologies do exist within the platforms you're using, maybe you've built them on top without considering a whole sort of best in breed viewpoint to everything. So I think that's probably something that companies in particular post pandemic, with a massive shift in online e-commerce pressure, particularly in like retail, that shift has really brought this to the forefront there. So I think, all of those things are swirling around in that sort of one figure of, the 69% planning to increase their investment. So I guess maybe you could tell me a little bit more then about the strategic importance of content. What are you
Yeah.
noticing around that?
Well, see, and then maybe it's a bit time for a practical example. If you think about ASICS, sports company,
Mm.
pretty popular. The way that they are thinking about content is so much broader these days. And to your point of channels, or there's basically a channel that is being created every day. So the way ASICS goes about it and thought about it was, well, we want to get to you way before you actually discover us. The moment you enter our website, there's a whole process before that, and there's a whole process after that. So what ASICS is planning to do and is actively working on is creating an ecosystem where, from you even starting to consider picking up running as a hobby to, hey, I want to sign up for this event in my area, that whole complete user journey is all mapped in the same technology stack. And those components all need to talk to each other in a sense. This is where the APIs from the Mach Alliance come in, the A,
Mm.
right? But it's incredibly difficult to have all these components seamlessly integrated. But you need them seamlessly integrated to push your content out in the right way to all of these different touch points. And a touch point can be anything from the gas pump when you fill up your car in the US, to the register in a supermarket when you're paying for your groceries, and it has a little message that says, hey, don't you want to, think about joining this next race, or put on your running shoes once you've put away the groceries. I mean, there's the fantastic thing about it is there's endless opportunity creatively if you're able to manage of those assets, which is, where someone like Bynder comes in. You guys are really going to play a pivotal role in managing all those different touch points, all those different channels. And maybe we stopped using the word channel because it's all one.
It is omni-channel now. It's the whole, it's the content experience, of which a digital experience is part, but you have to consider the content at the core. And I think, I will toot our own horn here a little bit, but in February we delivered 18 billion calls from our solution to over 5,000 websites in 1 month. Like, if we just think about that level of scale, like that's purely the websites. We're not necessarily talking about all the other areas that we publish content to, or indeed print, etc. as well, right? Like, I just think that sort of scale, once I think about that, it's sort of, it can come a bit unwieldy for marketers. And I think we had done some third-party research last year, and I recall that it said that most marketers use between 4 and 6 channels. And I forget the source, but we updated it through our own state of content report this year, and 66% of people reported using 11 or more channels.
Wow.
And I was just thinking about that. I was like, okay, so there's 66% of people using 11 or more channels. Let's layer on some element of relevance. Let's say that's localization, some translation, some different imagery. Let's layer on some experimentation, and then challenging teams to be speedy and agile around that. And then, for example, if you're, I think you would say quite likely that if your system is let's say a monolith, or it isn't this best in breed connect thing, it's hard to be speedy and agile, right? So then you're going to deliver a slow rollout of your new messaging or new format or whatever it is, and you're going to deliver inconsistent experiences. So in the case of the aspects that you've mentioned there, that's not possible, right? You're trying to be very well personalized, prepared for that person to make their first step into the buying journey, right? Before they've considered you, before they've even considered necessarily taking up running in that instance. That's going to be incredibly hard without this sort of new way of working, or this new way of thinking about how you deliver those experiences.
And it may straight out be impossible, because maybe the platform that you're on does not have an API for that specific service that you're trying to pull data in from. Bloop, there goes your fantastic plan. If the plugs don't match, then there's nothing you can do. And I think people don't realize that to the extent, right? Because the monolithic platforms are usually marketed as we're so convenient. You'll have everything you need already built in. And that is potentially true if you're a very average business with a very average plan on how to do things. The second you want to venture off the beaten path and you're trying to be innovative and you want to do things in a way that they haven't been done before, you're freaking screwed. Because how likely is it that a huge company like, say, Sidecore is going to build that solution specifically only for your innovative use case? You can try.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck.
Yeah.
But, and here we go with the speed component again. Most companies have stated that it takes them longer than 2 weeks to get a campaign out. And we're not talking about, it's the asset creation that takes so long, or we need to create the content first. No, we're talking about, hey, I know what I want to do. I have all my assets lined up. Still, it takes companies more than 2 weeks to push something out. Now, if you remember the pink slip dress frenzy that happened over TikTok, that is something that takes a turn within a day. If you want to jump onto the bandwagon and you want to participate in a trend like that, which is $1 million business, make no mistake about that.
Yeah.
If it takes you 2 weeks to actually arrive at something that even mentions the pink slip dress, guess what? By that time, the train has left the station a long time ago.
It's gone.
And it will be hurting you. So
yeah,
that is the full stake right there.
Totally agree. And that's just putting increased challenges and pressures on marketers as well. So it's just you may think it. So I guess maybe that is great. Maybe we could just jump into a little bit more of those specific problems facing marketers. I mentioned relevance, localization, translation, personalization earlier. Is that something that, you see affecting either teams at Content Stack, people you talk to through the Mac Alliance, or just in general in the marketplace?
Oh, for sure. And you've hit the nail on the head right there. I mean, localization is a huge topic because the old way of doing things is usually spreadsheet, believe it or not. And it's still the way some companies go about it. Now, can you imagine if you're a company like Iceland Air? So you're an airline. You have, a lot of countries to service in local language because but the regulation forces you to. It's not something that you choose, but you're legally required to serve a country in its specific language. Iceland has
Mm.
3 official languages alone. I mean, so can you imagine owning that kind of process manually with a spreadsheet, copy and paste, all the errors that you will end up making because you're a human or whoever is tasked with that horrible task of picking pieces out of a spreadsheet, putting them on a website, putting them back in, and doing that all day, every day. Wow. That is, to me, the most horrible job description you could ever offer me to do. But still, that was the reality. So,
Mm.
what they then did, and that's where the beauty of automation and headless CMS and API first comes in. With that headless CMS, they were able to plug in a translation service and an agency integrator. And so what they can do now is they actually submit the content for translation in the content management system. So no spreadsheets, no more. And then they can actually track that translation progress in the CMS. They get notified when it's done. So you don't have to go in and check manually or wait for the translator to come back and say, yes, I've done my translations. And then you go in and you fear, oh, but he or she has forgotten 15 fields over here. All that is ruled out because you're doing it automated. You're getting a ping when it's done. And then you can publish in bulk. So multiple entries across multiple languages by one push of a button. And think about how much time that frees up on your team to actually do the things that require more than copy and paste.
For
It's
sure.
amazing.
I think, particularly relevant, you just mentioned that in the age of, this AI boom that we're going through as well. Like at Bynder, we've always been about removing, tedious tasks from the process, right? Removing errors and inconsistencies so that your talented people that you spent all that time hiring are not doing, they're focusing on value add work, highly strategic, being creative, right? Like I think you said at the start about marketers didn't, we weren't set up to do meetings and sort of Excel work and etc. We wanted to be, there was an element of creativity and mixed with sales that was in there with us, and that's what we were, planning to do and hoping to do. And this stuff gets in there, and that's absolutely fine. But the best technology should be focused on allowing your teams to focus on high value add work, making sure that your content is performing, analyzing it, re-strategizing, and launching campaigns constantly that that deliver those great experiences and the sort of ultimately the performance and the revenue that your business is looking for. So I think with the AI piece as well, we've been implementing parts of it just particularly through through search, duplicate finders, etc. And that's the kind of thing that previously would have been causing inconsistencies, when they were using technology to do that, and hopefully empowering our customers even further as well. I think you mentioned as well earlier this idea of, well, again, not even that much earlier, but just about taking 2 weeks to get a campaign out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's definitely something I can empathize with.
Mm-hmm.
Seen it at multiple different companies personally, and it does feel, but again, everybody's doing their best and putting their doing whatever they have to do to get us there, but it tends to be a process. There's meetings and decision making, and you mentioned there about having it in one system. That's an amazing thing, where you're able to get approvals or understand what the work is done, not chasing people around these sort of things. That sort of level of management of the content is hugely important. But where, like, when it comes to speed, how can companies go about actually reducing that time to market? I think that's really what we're trying to get to today. Like, are there any examples you can give me of companies improving their time to market, their speed to market, and agility as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it is all about speed, right? And the faster you can move, the more successful you're going to be. And maybe another great example is MS Sleep, the mattress
D2C
company. That's what
mattress
they're
company,
best known
yeah.
for.
A D2C, weren't they? They sort of one of those D2C mattress company, I
Yeah,
believe. Yeah.
exactly. And I mean, you can imagine how important revenue is to them selling. They are a D2C business. They cannot stop operating to optimize their tech stack, but they needed a different tech stack because what they were looking at is it takes us way too long to launch new projects. We're not even talking 2 weeks. For them, it was, I think, 4 to 5, if not months. And they were like, okay, if our technology is holding us back to this extent, we need to do something about it while we're running our business, because nobody's going to stop a $240 million business to do some maintenance work on the technology side of things, right? So they had to swap the engine while flying. And it all
Mm.
worked out. And that's also the beautiful thing. You can start in a place and just start building a POC, a proof of concept in that one place, see how it goes, and then take it from there. For them, it was launching new websites in new countries. So what they ended up doing once they came off their legacy system, which was highly customized, by the way, but even with
Mm.
the amount of customization that they had, it was too slow. So what they ended up doing is they launched, hold on to your seats, 39, that is 39, almost 40 websites, complete websites in a single year. That is almost a website per week. It gives me sweat just thinking about it. Any marketer probably, right?
Yeah.
But how were they able to do that? They needed a composable tech stack. They needed to go faster. So they transformed to a Mac technology stack while running that business. And how did they do it? Not in a big, old, rip and replace, great unveil. No, they just chipped it away one piece at a time. They started with a personalization piece, and then they just kept going and going and going. And so they gradually moved off the old thing and moved into the new thing. And it's been a huge success.
It's funny that piece you say about it being a highly customized piece, but then it's also this probably a highly intricate thing, you know what I mean? Which is like, there's maybe one or two people in the company that know how to navigate it, and the supports may not necessarily be there as well, right? Like that's something that I think about when I hear something as you describe something like that. I don't know if that is a risk for companies as well.
It is. And the image that I always use is if you look at the rocket ship engines,
Hmm.
the old ones, they look super complicated, right? They have all these different muzzles and pipes, and it looks very, very complicated. And here's all these parts. And then if you look at the newer rocket ship engines, there's no frills. And if you don't know what you're looking at and you have both pictures side by side, you're tempted to say, oh, I think the fancy one over here, that must be the newer version because it has all the fancy
Right.
frills on top. And then actually you find out that no, less is more.
Hmm.
And nobody wants shelf software anymore these days. Why would you buy software that has a bunch of stuff that you're never going to use, but you're still paying for it? Wouldn't you much rather pick and choose the components that you actually need and choose a best of breed solution for all of those individual pieces? And then, of course, subsequently also only pay for the things that you're actually really heavily using. So there's a cost component, cost reduction component to it as well.
So I'm convinced, right? But I guess maybe here's the situation. Let me throw this at you. Let's say, one of those companies, maybe, the MS Sleep one, who actually, I just recall there, as you're saying it, they're also a Bynder customer as well. So clearly on some sort of digital transformation effort there. I guess, let's say we're marketing that company and we're implementing these changes. How am I going about sort of communicating the value of these at the core, quite complex in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, sort of changes? And maybe again, you mentioned their execs don't care about the technology changing. They want to understand sort of some of the results. So how are we seeing companies sort of communicate the value of this as they're going about it?
Yeah, brilliant question. And there's a few things that we see consistently across all companies. Maybe the most important thing is you have to speak the language of your target audience. So if you're talking to the C-suite, don't, venture into deep technical something. Do make it about the business benefit and what it is actually going to do. Now, however, if you're meeting with your developer teams or if you're meeting with the CTO, you will have to choose a very different vocabulary to help them understand what it is that you're actually trying to do. Now, if you're going to the CFO, your complete storyline needs to change because now here's a person who probably cares a lot about the business outcomes, not so much about the technology, but very much about the cost side of things. So you need to be aware of that and you need to reframe your message accordingly. And sort of related to that is you want to create advocates throughout the company, not just in marketing or between marketing and sales for what you're trying to do, because that will increase adoption and the willingness to try out something new across the whole company, even if you're not in a room. So those are two things that really keep surfacing time and again. And we just had a wonderful conversation with REI, huge retail brand, US based. And what Kat actually said, and she's the engineering manager, it's like, well, you don't need to convince everyone. Impossible. Not everyone is going to understand or care or like what you're going to do. But you need to convince a portion of every team that you're going to be working with.
Mm.
A portion is enough to get started. It doesn't have to be everyone, but you need those few people that are, willing to come along with you on your journey.
It's another wrinkle to it, isn't it? We don't just have to be the technical experts and the commercial sort of have commercial acumen and understand how we're trying to influence strategy, but also build internal advocates, build sponsors internally as well when we do these things. And it's crucially important, particularly when you're taking big swings like, you've described between ice and air or Emma sleep as well, or those kind of things are incredibly important. So I've really enjoyed chatting to you. So today, Jasmin, maybe I could just give you a chance, anybody listening today, is there any sort of key takeaways? Is there one thing they can learn, one thing that you'd be like, don't forget this, something crucially important to them that you'd like them to walk away with?
Yeah. And I think it would be trust your teams to do more, enable them to really do things. And don't just say it, mean it. Get the right tools to them to enable them to do more. I have yet to see a single instance where anybody ever regretted doing that. And you can start small. I think that's the most important thing. That's debunk the myths here. Many times people think, oh, it's too complicated or it's too big a change or rip and replace is the only way to do things. Absolutely not. Pick one thing that is really painful for you or your teams today and start with changing that and see how it goes. That way you're not only proving to yourself that it's actually better, that will also build that trust across departments and you can, showcase the effect that it actually has with tried and true and proven statistics, KPIs, and that will make it so much easier to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So don't be scared. It doesn't have to be one big rip and replace. Take it small, and that will make you even more successful.
Yeah, find a beachhead for these things is always a good strategy. Like, where can we test it? Where can we experiment with it? What's the first step we can take to see if it could turn into something that might be we might operationalize or bring forward in future. So I think that's, but also trusting people as well. I think that's, spend all our time hiring and then, we should trust the people that we bring in. So I think that's a great thing to leave us on. So thank you very much again for joining us today. I am absolutely certain we'll be inviting you back at some stage. because I think this is a crucially important. Got this best in breed, building a technology ecosystem, a digital ecosystem that works for your business, whatever those components or modules are for your specific business, is an incredibly important concept that, you know, still needs some daylight shone on it, and advocacy as well. So again, thank you very much for joining us today, Jasmin.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you, Donald.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Digital Advantage, brought to you by Bynder, the leading digital asset management platform. Bynder helps you conquer the chaos of growing content, touchpoints, and relationships. If you found this episode inspiring, you'll love our additional content on our social channels, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform.